Okay, we're gonna go. And I turned on the recording. So welcome to the training for RFP that LISC will be releasing next week, I believe. And the training is about collaboration and just how do you respond to an RFP. I am Maury Planbeck. You all got an email from me, or you wouldn't be here probably. Shelby Cummings, from a program officer from LISC, is going to introduce a couple of people and then we'll really get started.
Sure. So thank you so much, first of all, Maury and INRC, for supporting this initiative that was announced earlier this week, and to help with making the opportunity to leverage these funds an equitable and accessible process through this training. Wanted to introduce and have each of these individuals speak if they'd like just a bit. Two of our co-chairs for the initiative advisory are here tonight. So Oljan Williams, you want to introduce yourself, and then also after Oljan, and then Natalie Cooper, if you could.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be part of the training today. Thank you, Shelby, for inviting me to be part of this great initiative that's much needed in several communities in the city, in the county, believe it or not. And I'm Oljan Williams. I'm retired several years. I live on the west side of Indianapolis in Hallville, USA, and currently a co-chair of Hallville Strong Neighborhood Association, and on the board of the West Side Development Corporation, and work with the Marion County. I work for the State Fair Board and Fair Commission as members of those two organizations. And a father of 10, husband of 1, grandfather 20, great-grandfather 5, and I'm broke.
That's fantastic. And Natalie.
Sure thing. Thank you, Shelby. So Natalie Cooper, and here representing Anthem. Like Mr. Oljan Williams said, really excited to be a part of this initiative to bring some great things to a neighborhood in Indianapolis, and great to be here tonight to learn more about the RFP and ensure that we get questions and concerns answered. So thanks so much for all for joining, and ready to learn a lot tonight.
Great.
Thank you, Natalie. Let's go ahead, if we could. Lakeisha Jackson, could you do a brief introduction as a representative from the city?
Sure. Lakeisha Jackson, City County Councilor, District 14, representing Indianapolis, Marion County. Just welcome everyone. Greetings from the City County Council, our President, Bob Osley. We're excited about this initiative to bring access to food accessibility to all in Indianapolis and Marion County, or at least particularly to a neighborhood, to afford the opportunity to increase food accessibility and reduce food insecurity. As we know, Indiana is #1 in the country, or it was pre-COVID, not quite sure where we are before COVID started and where we are now. I am the Community Affairs Chairwoman for the City of Indianapolis and City Council. And one of my passions and one of my forefronts that I've been working on is creating the opportunity to address the food insecurity issue that we have in our city and our county. And so that's something I've been working on and developing, as recently Proposal 337 to address the food issue that we do have here. And that does address the food access. So this plugs right into what we're here for, training and learn more about tonight. So thank you, Anthem. Thank you, LISC. Thank you, Shelby, and all those who are the chairs and co-chairs of this great initiative and project so much, and those who here who want to be able to help reduce the food insecurities and lack of food access in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Maury?
Great. Okay, just a couple of housekeeping items. I was trying to think of some fun April Fool joke, but I couldn't, so sorry about that. Hope you all had an April Fool joke today. My parents always did that to us, so it was kind of a part of our life. Let's see, there's 28 of us, counting me, I'm never probably going to go on mute, but I would wish everyone else would stay on mute unless they talk. But we are, you know, I do better when there's questions, but we also have a lot of material to cover. So if you really have a question, you can put it in the chat, and some people are going to watch the chat for me and ask me that. But if you really think you want to just ask a question, say, hey, Maury, I have a question. And then also say who you are, because once I go to the slides, I won't be able to see who you are. So that's kind of the way we'll do it tonight. After tonight, INRC is going to be available for some technical assistance throughout this process. Specifically, I'm going to attend in late April, I believe it is, the joint meeting of all people about the request for proposals. I also, like I said, you have my email, and RFP stands for Request for Proposals. Joyce, you're lucky that I saw that. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to see the chats. But that's what RFP stands for, Request for Proposal. Anyway, so I'll go to the meeting at the end of April, and you can email me questions, and I will probably put together a list of all the questions and answers for everyone ultimately. And you know, so some of you know me, some of you don't, but I'm very responsive. And so when you email me a question, you will get an answer. And if the answer might be, I'm going to put together a bunch of answers, but you will get an answer relatively soon. So before I start, are there any questions on how we're going to handle tonight then? Great.
I'll just clarify a couple things. So we had the community announcement this week with training now. The RFP will be released a week from today, April 8th. We will hold a community information meeting about the initiative that will give specific details. So this meeting tonight will not give specific details greater than what was already in the community announcement about the initiative. So this is information that you can use specific for the LISC RFP, and there's some things that are catered to the RFP that will be released, but also it's information for other RFPs that you might be responding to in the future. So just wanted to clarify that. And so the 15th is the meeting to which Maury referred, and he will be available at that time as well.
And I saw the chat from Reverend Dickin, and Shelby will get the recording tomorrow. And so she can figure out how that's going to be distributed, because it takes a while for it to download tonight after I'm done. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so we're the Indianapolis Neighborhood Resource Center. If you don't know of us, we have worked with neighborhoods in Indianapolis for over 25 years, and I have worked there for 5.5 years now. And you know what we're going to be talking about tonight. I already told you that. If we were doing this in person, I would have everybody kind of talk about what would you do if you had $10,000 or more, but we're not doing it in person. But it's just fun to dream about that. And that's how often proposals are. You can have funds that help support your neighborhood or help support your life. We have really two learning objectives tonight, and that's how to initiate a collaboration. So how to work with other people, and then some just general RFP tips in drafting the RFP, and responding to it, maybe doing some interviewing. For the collaboration part, INRC has been doing collaboration workshops for the whole time I've been there, approximately 3 times a year. So we have been doing a lot of collaboration workshops. For the RFP part, we have responded to proposals, requests for proposals as an organization. And in my previous job, when I used to work for the city of Indianapolis, I have reviewed dozens, if not 100 proposals. And so, and I'm pretty honest about the kinds of things that I learned while I was doing that. So that's where the questions come in helpful tonight or after. So when you're thinking about responding to this proposal, first of all, you're going to get it next week. That's what Shelby just told you. But, be creative in your planning. And, be creative in who you think about you're going to work with. There are cycles of grants that you should think about. And that's where this training kind of is not just for this request for proposals. But when you think about a grant process, first you have to develop the idea. That's what I just told you to be creative about, developing the idea. Then you need to think about funding. In this proposal, request for proposals, you're not going to have to worry about funding too much. That is not the main focus, according to Shelby, and I'm sure that will be in information in the actual RFP. You need to develop the proposal. You need to review it. And so if I was the writer of a proposal from INRC, I would probably have 2 or 3 of our 6 staff review that proposal. So you need to review it. You need to have your partners review it. You need to submit it. We're going to talk about submittal deadlines and things like that. Then hopefully you're going to get it. Then you start the project. And so you really haven't done anything about the project except for think about it in this stage. You need to manage the grant. If there is funding involved, which there would be, you need to manage that. You need to have people that can manage that. And you'll need to probably put that in the proposal, what experience you have in doing that. You'll need to close it out at the end. And there are usually lots of requirements for that. And the reason that's very important is that sets a tone for next time when you respond to a proposal or you submit a grant request. If you don't close out something right, I guarantee the same funder is going to remember that you didn't close it out right. And then you share the results. You share the results with the funders. You share the results with your partners. You share the results with the community. And hopefully this proposal, the project that comes from this proposal will be something that can be shared with our community and maybe even others. Okay, so collaboration is, working with more than one group or more than one person. So LISC is requiring that there be some sort of collaboration. That is not the reason you should be doing collaboration in your response. Collaboration means that you're going to have some commitment to shared goals. So you need to think about what your goals are, and then you're going to need to talk to other people, other groups about what their goals are and make sure your goals are shared. The idea is not that one organization has their goals and they just get some groups to go along with the proposal because LISC said they should go along with the proposal. That will not win you this project. You also you'll share responsibility. That's one of the benefits, and I have a slide that talks about benefits. You'll all be accountable for the success. You will all be accountable for not being successful too. So that's how you need to figure out how you're going to work together. And there's lots of reward, even though I also have risk in there. There is some risk in there. Okay, so there's different levels of collaboration. And if you Google this, there's different ways that organizations describe these different levels, because the things I'm going to show you now are one way. When we've done some library classes, we also talk about different ways. So there's no perfect definition for collaboration in this sense. And you may use some or all of these in your response to this RFP. So the first is communication. Very simple. You might just be finding out information from other organizations or other people in your neighborhood, and that's part of your collaboration. The second is a little bit higher level, and this is my description. It's a little bit higher level, but where you start to work together. You're supporting one another's activities, but you really don't have a formal agreement. I often give this example of Keep Indianapolis Beautiful. Keep Indianapolis Beautiful is working with neighborhoods all over Indianapolis to make our city look better. Lots of tree plantings and lots of cleanups. I don't believe they make you sign a paper to do those. You know, KIB knows what they do, the neighborhoods know what they do, and it's very successful. Next is coordination. And so that's where partners are engaged in mutual projects and initiatives, and you might have to change some of your activities to make the benefit of the whole. And then finally, collective impact. And that's where there really probably is a formal agreement, and you're working towards probably a long-term project. This might be one of those kinds of things. One of your partners might be someone you're working with in a long-term project. But once again, you might be just talking to some people. Also identify those in your proposal. So identify all these different levels. So INRC and LISC are collaborating on this training tonight. And we have a little agreement that was written out. It's only a page long. We already changed it a little bit, but so be flexible in that too. And Shelby's smiling, I did see that, and so am I. And so collaborations do make people happy. So there's some benefits. Think about the benefits. Continually think about the benefits, because I'm also going to tell you about the limitations. So the benefits are there's more people working together. There's some enhanced visibility and influence. So you might be an organization that is new and you really aren't very well known. And so a collaboration, if you collaborate with someone that's been an organization that's been around for 20 years, boy, people will know you a lot better. Certainly there's going to be more relationships. Relationships help you in the long run. Having worked in the city of Indianapolis and INRC for over 30 years now, I have many relationships, and I can recommend people all the time based upon needs that they want. And so that's what happens in a collaboration. You might learn something from another organization that you're not doing that can help your organization. And just more people working together provides a greater scale at a better reach. Okay, so the limitations. Remember, don't always think about the limitations, but you will be during the process. It takes longer to work with someone else. Now, I'm the kind of person that I really believe this. I really believe that collaborating and working with other people makes us stronger. But I also sometimes think I could get this done a lot faster if I just did it myself. I got to keep not thinking that, because I got to keep back to the benefit. So you might have team members that are doing that. It can be easily derailed. And the thing that I often see in community work that's derailing some sort of collaboration is you're volunteer. Many people are volunteers. And so new people come into the process often. And so say you've worked to create this collaboration, and you got you won the proposal. And 2 months, you get some new people in your neighborhood that get involved, and they think way differently than you already been thinking. They can derail the process very easily. And derailing might just mean taking up conversations and meetings. And so just think that can happen. And we recommend that as you're doing collaborations, you put it in writing. And I'll be talking about that in more detail. And that can help with the derailment, because you can say, oh, these are the reasons we did all of the things that we're doing. There could be complex layers of decision-making, meaning if you have two pretty major organizations, they have directors, they have boards, and so that decision-making might have to go through them. And it can take a while. Somebody has is not on mute. So I'd appreciate it if maybe you went on mute.
I think it's the person who's on the phone, 317. There we go. I think
Thank you.
Maybe.
Thank you. It just, I apologize for telling you to do that, but it's just a little bit distracting for me. Okay, so remember I said in the, I think the second or third slide, you know, you're not doing this just because this request for proposal is saying you want to collaborate. You need to, you should be doing it because you want to demonstrate the capacity to work with partners. And that is a talent. You know, it takes a lot to be able to work with partners because you have so many different viewpoints, you have so many different personalities, you have so many different organizations and the organizational structures. But if you can do that, if you can work together, you're going to get so much more accomplished. And in this case, it's going to make your project stronger. So in talking to Shelby in developing this workshop tonight, she says that you should, if you have some gaps to fill and you don't have all the collaboration that you need, they will help you find a partner. They will help you with capacity building. So keep that in mind. You don't have to have everything figured out in this response. Another thing is the equity element of this proposal. And just really, I wish you would think that in general, that we would be better off in life if everybody thought about equity. But think about, can your collaboration help some other organizations? You know, I already said it's probably going to help yours, but you know, are there some like a newer organization, or maybe an organization that has only a couple people, or maybe a neighborhood organization that's not been around for a while? Maybe your collaboration can make them stronger, which in turn makes the community stronger. And you know, reaching out to find partners like that is what you should start doing tomorrow, probably.
Yep. So I'm going to pipe in here because I see a really great comment. So how many times have we heard Olgin Williams say working together works, right? So that's great. We're using Olgin's words without him even having to say it. And I'm just going to one more time reinforce what Maury asked. Whoever's called on the phone, if you could please mute your phone. I sent you a text asking. It's just hard to hear. If you're on the phone, please mute. That would be great. Thank you. And Maury, you might have control to mute everybody as well.
Yeah, I know I do. I'm gonna bear with it for a little bit more because I have to go out of the slides to do it.
Okay.
And you know, even though I've been doing Zoom for a year now, I can mess it up, and I don't want to if I can help it. Okay, so I gave you some handouts and indicated in the email that you got today that the handouts are really to read later. So this is the starting of handout 2, and it's the phases of development for collaboration. And the first phase is starting it. And one of the, I think it says it on the handout that the phase may be initiated by a funder. So yes, this phase is being initiated by LISC and this RFP. However, you're going to think about an issue that you want to work on, and so and how working across sectors is going to make that issue be solved or be addressed. And so all of you that are here tonight, you're probably the initiators, but you need to start working with the other people to get a purpose that everyone has a consensus on.
And just to clarify, Maury, for just a minute, just to clarify, this RFP is functioning in 2 capacities. One, it's your letter of interest. It is saying we want to be a neighborhood that's selected for this investment. And then there will be specific identifiers and questions where you will say, and we're a promising investment. And here's the things that we know going on. And your shared vision with your collaborative partners is to develop, to increase healthy food access and equity in your community. So you might not have one specific project. This isn't like an enhancing opportunities RFP, and congratulations to those who received awards. It's very exciting, where you have a pretty well-baked proposal that has very specific, goals and timelines. It is saying, here's what we know, here's our collaborative partners in our community. We came together to even put the proposal together to answer the questions in the proposal. And then these are also going to be our collaborative partners who will help us do the community action plan, and then they will also be our implementation partners. So do understand this application is your letter of intent and interest that we want to be chosen. So you are applying to be chosen for a process to develop a community action plan focusing on food access and equity and implementation. So we're thankful to Anthem that there's funding for the plan as well as implementation. So just to clarify that.
So thank you for clarifying that, Shelby, and you just made my point, because I sort of knew that, but I didn't describe it very well. and Shelby did it better. So two people did that better, and you got a better information than if I would have just done you So you start doing outreach. I've already kind of mentioned that, but that means talking. You might be meeting. You might be finding new organizations, you might be doing some research, but that's what the outreach is all about. Then in this case, it's probably not really identifying what your project might be, because that's what I really have in the slideshow in my notes. But it's identifying how your different partners can work together for this response and how you will work together after. You have to get some commitment. And I'm going to show you some forms on how to get that commitment. There's different ways to do it, and you can do it however you want. You don't even have to use any of our forms, but I always think it's helpful if you use forms. But commitment is probably more than a handshake in this case. I mean, it really is more than a handshake. You could try it that way, but I would guess you wouldn't get the proposal if you did it that way. Then you do some planning. So who's going to do what? And this probably doesn't all have to be figured out before you do your response, but it's going to have to be figured out when you do when you do a project, if you are awarded or plan or whatever. But you figure out, who's going to do what, what are your goals and what are your objectives, what's going to happen when you're done, and how are you going to tell people about what's happening, and how you're going to evaluate that. How do you know if you're even successful? Just creating a plan doesn't mean you're successful. Just spending some money doesn't mean you're successful. You have to figure out all of those kinds of things in the planning and structure phase. Then you implement it, and that will certainly come if you are awarded this. I do have a note in here that you're going to make some mistakes in the process. I make mistakes. I've been around a long time, but I make mistakes. You're going to have different people involved. So in your planning, you should figure out how you're going to handle changes, because changes are acceptable, but they don't go very well if you haven't figured out that you're going to accept them and make a process for that. And if you make mistakes and you don't have a process to figure out how you're going to correct them, that means you haven't done very good planning either. And then finally, reflection, celebration. And so, in the slide where I talk about it takes a long time to do a collaboration, one of the negatives. Well, it does take a long time, and people get tired. And so you could celebrate different things during the process. You could celebrate getting your proposal in. You could celebrate that in a little way. You could certainly celebrate if you win. You can also celebrate, maybe you're working together even if you don't get this proposal. Maybe you made a new relationship that's going to long-term help your neighborhood. But to just figure out different ways to celebrate so that people don't get burned out. And so I mentioned a collaboration charter or agreement. Okay, this sounds really, really formal. It doesn't have to be. Like the one that INRC did with LISC, Shelby said, do something simple that lays out everything. And it did in a page. And I said to Shelby, this is really simple. And that's what worked. It's signed and we're doing it. We're doing it here tonight. But it outlines what you're going to collaborate on, the conditions. Okay, so if you have those various levels, so if maybe somebody's just going to be a consultant that you're going to talk with, well, that's what that collaboration is. If it's somebody that's going to be working with you for a long haul, then you need to really probably have a more formal agreement written out. But you cover the topics that I kind of talked about in those different steps. You know, the planning of it, how are you going to do the planning? How are you going to do the operations? How are you going to do the change process? How are you going to have decisions made with the group? How are you going to go back to other boards if you have to, or other directors if you have, you know, figure out all that stuff. You might not be able to figure out everything because we're not all perfect, but so that means you can develop it over time as you're working along. And remember that comment I made about people derailing it. It's a record. It's a record that helps on that derailment. It helps on history. It helps the next time you submit a response to an RFP. It helps the next time you do a grant. It helps to your funders. It helps to your board. It's all good, even though it's a lot of work in the beginning. So there's some elements to it. The purpose, I've talked about the purpose. I'm going to be repeating things that I really think are important. Having the purpose agreed upon is really important. If you can agree upon the purpose, many other things will be easier. If you never agree on the purpose, I pretty much think your collaboration is set to fail. You know, if you have some assumptions about what's happening in your neighborhood or what are the values of the groups, you know, think about that. What's your vision? Certainly basic stuff like timeline and milestones. In this case, you might have timelines about when you get the proposal ready. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but you know, certainly if different people are doing parts of your proposal, you can't have one person get done on time and one person be a week late. So you need to have that kind of stuff. You know, who's going to be involved? Who's going to be involved as the people that are actually in the meetings? Who, like I mentioned, decision making several times. How are you going to reach out to new people and let them be involved? So think about that. Everybody's roles and their contributions. Think about that. You know, if there's conflict of interest things, if you were collaborating with the city, there's conflict of interest forms you have to fill out. Actually, not-for-profits all have to do that. What about financial? You know, so there's going to be some money involved if you win this. And so, you know, who does the money go to? How does the money go to the different organization, to the different people, however that works out? Think about the things that are going to be a problem. Think about the constraints. If you can think about the constraints ahead, and maybe this is something you brainstorm, hopefully they won't happen. But if you thought about it, when they do happen, it makes your collaboration so much better. And then there's the basic stuff about participating and decision-making and things like that. So handout 3, I'm going to show you just for a second, assuming that I can get this to work. Here's one of the forms that I think is really, really helpful. Almost all the things that I just told you are on this form. You don't necessarily have to use a form like this, but if you write this stuff down, even in a brainstorming session, it will get you some sort of charter. It will get you some sort of agreement because it talks about the vision, talks about the members, it talks about the rules. And so you will have that form. If you have any questions about that form, I gave it to you in Word, I believe. You could change it however you want. You know, it's not something that has to be done this way. If I were reviewing a proposal that had, first of all, in the proposal, you're going to have some limitations on how much information you submit, which makes total sense to me because I have seen responses to proposals submit tons and tons and tons of reading material that makes it very difficult to do. It's going to be limited. But if you have done something like this and could put that in one of the responses, oh, we did a collaboration planning worksheet and created our vision and all that, I would be impressed if you did that. Not just because I told you to do that in this class either.
Yeah, so there will be a portion that you can add those. So if you strike MOUs with your implementation partners, those you're doing planning, you certainly can add that in an attachment form there. The reason that we're really trying to, so this isn't like draft a 5-page concept paper kind of proposal. We're going to ask very specific questions related to food systems, producers, and processors and distributors and connectors to consumers and managing waste. So the entire food system process, the impact that this food system development will have on your local economy, and then the health impact. So we'll have food access, food security, food economy questions in it. And you will be identifying partners that can assist. And so this form could easily be used like, here's somebody working in food access, and here's somebody working with producers, and here's our goals that we haven't yet reached, but we want to, and here's some potential projects. So this will be a great form that will be helpful for you. Those partners saying, hey, we want to work collaboratively for this proposal, and then also in the development of a plan. And some of you already might have some food systems plans already developed or partly developed, and this gives you an opportunity to go deeper, maybe get into portions of the food system that your current plans might not engage. And this is place-based, so we're looking for specific geographies rather than citywide initiatives. And then they will also then be part of your implementation partners. As you finish the plan and you move into executing the plan, these will be your partners in that as well. And you can add more afterwards, but this is your core group that says, yes, we're ready to move forward together for this project.
Great, thanks, Shelby. So this is the whole form. If you go back tomorrow and you go to the slideshow and use this Google Doc, you will be printing on my computer, so don't do that. use the Word document that I showed you. Another form that I think is very helpful. Okay, so by the time you want to do a stakeholder partner mapping form, you probably have already thought about your partners, because I told you you're going to start thinking about that tomorrow, or maybe even tonight. Hopefully you can sleep though, but think about that. So the partners are probably easier in this sense. The reason that we think this form is important, so you think about the stakeholders. And stakeholders, in my opinion, because everybody has different ideas about what stakeholders are, partners are all stakeholders. So they're both, right? But stakeholders might be people in the neighborhood that will receive food if that's what happens ultimately. Or it might be food pantries that have been in existence for a long time. It's people that are not involved in the process that might be impacted by it. And so you use this to just kind of think about, oh, we need to think about stakeholders. And here's why I think it's so important to do that. Remember my KIB example about the tree planting. And I love trees, and I have planted trees in my neighborhood. It's been a while, but when we did it, we had everything all planned out, worked with KIB, we knew where all the trees were planting, and we went and did it. And we got to this one house and we planted the tree, and the person that lived in that house came out and said she did not want a tree in front of her house. We had to take it up and move it. And it's because we didn't think about people that lived in the houses that weren't involved in the tree planting. So that's a good enough reason. Just think about other people who might be impacted by what you're thinking about. Okay, so then these are just some hints, put stuff in writing. I've mentioned that already. The process is just as important as the product. So it's probably not very wise for somebody to start filling out that form tomorrow without having talked to other people that you're going to be collaborating with. That building trust, that building agreement on consensus of what you want to think about. This says to formally adopt all decisions, and adding data and amendments. Formally means things, you figure out what formally means to you. Things can change, people can change, so you need to figure out how that can happen. And then, you need to decide how to change things before that happens. I can't overemphasize that, because you're not going to have a lot of time in the planning stages here. So if some big disagreement happens in week 3 of your planning, that could take like a couple weeks to resolve. So try to think about that very quickly, and then it's never a finished product. I'm not going to show these to you, but I gave you 2 other handouts. One is called Collaboration Framework, and the other is called Initiating and Facilitating a Collaboration. And so those are just things you can read. They're a different way to describe the kinds of things that I've just gone through with you. And the reason that INRC thinks that that's important is because, you're going to do your own agreement. You're going to do your own process, and there's lots of different ways to do it. So we're just trying to give you tools how to do it. We're not saying this is the exact way to do it. Okay, before we go on then, maybe this is a good time to take some questions on collaboration.
Yep, there's a couple questions. When you say place-based, can you speak to how this is defined for this grant? So there are natural, it's not specific to one neighborhood, because many times we see multiple neighborhoods coming together and identifying themselves as, for instance, the Near East, the Near West, the Northeast Corridor, the Near Northwest Corridor, South Indy. You can define what your geography is. So that will be a question, is what is the geography that you are working on, that you will be working to build healthy and food access and equity in a food systems approach. So it might be, 4 neighborhoods, and say where that is. You get to define that. That is your agency to exercise. You might have a couple communities, maybe the Near East and the Southeastern District. They might decide to work together, or the Far East Side might decide to work, with a portion of the Northeast Corridor. So you can identify where your geography is. What is generally the purpose, one of the purposes of place-based initiatives is there's a DNA and a culture that exists in portions of the community that residents and stakeholders have the right to retain and work together to preserve that. And so we want to cultivate that. And there are partners, really a local food system, how you could have producers and processors and distributors all within one economy, within a neighborhood, maybe tapping into some regional resources. Really elevates an economy, local economies. So thinking about how you could do that. So that's a long answer to place-based, but definitely we defer to the applicants in deciding where the geography is that you are wanting to develop this, for which you want to develop this plan. And then there's another question. We're a church with 3 food pantry locations throughout the city. part of our mission is to meet the needs of the communities we serve with food insecurity, and specifically healthy food insecurity as part of that. I would be interested if there's anyone on the call interested in collaborating on a response. We serve the west side primarily, Fairfax, Hawville, Old South Side, just south of downtown. So there's the geography there. So that organization, so Steve, you might partner with 3, 4, 5 other organizations for one of the communities where you're serving and say, hey, we would be an implementation partner to address food insecurity through our pantry as that community puts a proposal together. We would be willing to be supporting some of the strategies related to food insecurity on the community action plan.
Anything
Any
else?
other questions?
We are pretty good on time, everyone. So if you want to ask questions, we're pretty comfortable with it.
I can clarify a couple things. So the selection process, LISC is not the organization making the decision about where the investment community will be. That is done through an initiative advisory that is 24 members that have, we went in and we're very intentional about the development of this advisory that has some food systems thought leaders, as well as those who are contributing to equity with community engagement, those who are doing economic development, some who are doing physical development that are addressing some of the other social determinants that are influenced by food. We have worked really hard on racial, ethnic, and gender diversity, as well as some who have been in the Indianapolis market for a long time, and then some who are newer to the Indianapolis market that might bring some fresh ideas to really bring a very diverse group who will be reviewing your proposals to make the selection. So just to let you know that LISC is just facilitating the process, but not making that final selection. Do know that as you're putting together your applications, if you're not chosen as selected as the primary investment community, we will be looking at some what we're calling capacity building projects that you might have identified in your proposal, where we say, you know, we want to start catalyzing some food systems growth in other parts of Indianapolis. It certainly doesn't take away from the investment in the primary investment community that's selected through this process. And there also is the goal, which was written in the community press release, is that this is the beginning of this initiative. Anthem, LISC, and other partners are looking to expand investment similar to this volume in other neighborhoods here in Indianapolis. Any questions? What are the deadlines for submission? So the RFP will be released April 8th, and the applications will be due on May 21st. So you have 6 weeks to complete that process. Time for the project start and completion. So the initiative is a 3-year partnership with Anthem Foundation, which started January 1st and will then run through December 31st, as it currently stands, December 31st, 2023. We did speak with Anthem Foundation as the selection process took a little bit longer to get going, that, you know, we could look at how do we maybe facilitate a full 3 years once the investment community has been identified, because we know that developing from start to finish a community action plan that has the complexities of food systems in it can take 6 to 9 months. And so we want to make sure that there's also time for additional support for implementation. The project advisory absolutely will be available for the neighborhood and the neighborhood's developed food systems steering committee to reach out and say, hey, we're needing some assistance as well. Let's see, a couple of other questions. Are the factors for the award, as you consider place-based, looking for more of a broad across a larger geography, or deep within specific longer-term solutions for a more narrow geography, one that could be modeled to other neighborhoods of the city? Again, we defer to your neighborhood and the voice of your community and your stakeholders to determine that. Certainly, we are wanting the greatest impact possible. Anthem as well. We're looking to support health impact as well as economic impact. And so that is to follow the voice of the community that you put together and decide your geography. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions in the chat.
Okay, we can move on then.
Yep.
Thank you for answering those, Shelby. That is very helpful. Okay, so now we're really on the response to the RFP kind of part of the training, and you see this big research first. But Shelby just told you only had really 6 weeks after next, so you sort of have 7 weeks right now. So the main thing that I think you should research is using the RFP and read it. That's your main thing to research. So you're going to get that next week. But in this time, you can do some research, about potential collaborations. A faith-based organization just now said does anybody want to collaborate? So you need to do some research with each other. So I'm going to go to this form, which is handout 7. So you have it. So you don't have to take any notes or anything like that, but this is just some tips from United Way on doing research. So if let's see, it's find out about the mission from LISC, find out about the mission from Anthem, find out the mission of the other organizations that you're thinking about partnering with. The requirements, that's will be outlined in the RFP. Shelby just talked a little bit about geographic limitations, which there aren't any. It's you described that. The RFP will talk about some of the funding and things like that. But you can see what Anthem has funded in the past, and you can see what LISC has funded in the past, so you just know about them. Many of you, I'm sure, already do. Any exclusions, requiring a letter of intent. This is a cross between a letter of intent and a request for proposals. Deadlines, Shelby already talked about that. What's been funded recently, you can find that on the web for almost any funder. In this case, I don't think caring about an average grant award is something you should be worried about right now. And do you have any funding, any organization work that you've done in the past with them? And the reason I think that's important is, so like I mentioned, I work for the city, and so every single year we have different kinds of fundings. And so we have had organizations that are really, really successful. We have had organizations that maybe weren't successful in the beginning, but were successful later because they learned from that. And so, if think about what your organization has experienced that way. I just mentioned that this is going to be a hybrid. There does not need to be a project already designed, which is really an advantage, I think. It's an advantage and probably a little bit, it might make it a little bit difficult, because as you're talking to your partners, you're thinking, well, what should we do? Well, that's where all this brainstorming, and that's where all these forms can think about, if you brainstorm for an hour, I'll bet you can come up with some pretty good ideas. Okay, so the RFP will probably outline all of this, but typically, and so you can use this information for some other stuff too, remember, but usually do a summary. You describe your organization, and in this case, you describe all of the partnerships, all of the collaborations. A statement of need, a statement of your idea, a statement of what you're doing, what your goals and objectives are, and how you're going to measure outcomes. And I was kind of forceful on this when I said it the first time, but it's important for funders to know that what they fund is going to have some good outcomes that are impactful. So you need to think about that. And I have some more clues on that in another slide. Project or idea description. You don't need to worry about a budget. However, if you do have a project, Shelby says, you might put the budget for that project in there, but you don't have to worry about it. And actually, that's a big deal that you don't have to worry about it. How might this last after the 3 years? And in thinking about that sustainability, if you are not awarded, but you found a good group of people to work with, you might be sustainable now. So it's really worth thinking about that. Recognition, that's really more after you get an award, if you get an award, and whatever you're going to attach. And some of those attachments are some of your basic information about your organization, and the RFP will outline what you need to attach. So data. Whoops, sorry about that. I think I went. Yeah, data. So if you're gonna, I just said measuring stuff is really, really important. Well, if you say that you're going to measure some stuff, and you get in the middle of the first year, and you realize, well, I needed to figure out my base data. So you need to be thinking about what you're going to measure, like in the next couple of weeks. So your first step might have to be getting some base data. It might be information that you have already. It might be information that the city of Indianapolis has, and they have a ton of information. It might be information that comes from census. So be thinking about where you're going to get that information. And you can, it says national statistics, local statistics. You can Google lots of stuff and get lots of information. Googling or however you search. I happen to Google. And demographics and how you're going to get those demographics. What do you have now? How are you going to get it in the future? And I will say our INRC is continually struggling with how do we tell people who we serve, and particularly we work with the city on trying to figure that out. So that's going to be important for you. There also is a handout that I'm going to show you. I'm going to go down for a second. So this is also from United Way. Kim Donahue at United, when she worked at United Way, had a lot of experience in this. And so how to write a nonprofit case statement, talk about who you are. So you get lots of information about who you are, what you're all about, your mission. Is there a need that you're going to address? Well, there is in this case, something regarding equity and food access. I would think that that's what you're going to put in your proposal. If not, it will probably make it very easy for your group not to be accepted. What are the outcomes? And create a sense of excitement about your work and about this project. And I would just be excited. about the idea. I mean, I am excited about the idea, probably more than I thought I would be right now. And you know, this is like a really great opportunity. So that's a handout. You have that to read later.
So this is a really great handout. You'll have, you know, one of your organizations will be the lead applicant, who most likely will be what we call the convening agency, or function as the fiscal agent, where the funding will flow and then be able to sub-grant to other implementation partners. It's often the convening agency. So there's funding for full-time staff specific for this project for the selected neighborhood, as well as some what we're describing as neighborhood food advocates. So there could be residents that are paid for engagement and assisting with the project. It could be other stakeholders as well. And there are consultants that are also going to come alongside, a facilitator, food systems consultant. So they will be doing community food assessments for you. We will have somebody doing health impact assessment along the way, that as decisions are made, we'll look at what are the potential impacts on health as you develop your plan, your community action plan, really looking at subgroups, subpopulations within. Some decisions that are proposed in your plan might impact certain races and ethnicities differently than others. And so we want to be aware of that in the process. So you will have access to those resources that are fully funded in support of the development of the plan. But a strong convening agency is really important to the success of this. An organization that has neighborhood trust, where other partners are willing to collaborate and work with them, have good relationships with city officials, state officials, a variety of partners who could come alongside and support the neighborhood, and then an organization that has the capacity to manage funds. Saying that, though, there are capacity building dollars within this grant, and we're really thankful for this, that allows, if there is an agency that says, you know, yeah, we feel like we could be a lead, and it's a great proposal, but we might need help with some financial management, or we might need help with some board development or something like that. LISC is willing to come alongside and do some of that capacity building in order for the project to be successful. This is going to be an important way to describe primarily the lead applicant for this, who will kind of guide for and lead for the neighborhood this planning and implementation process. But you might still have bios of your implementation partners that say, yeah, we're going to be a key partner. The convening agency will say, yeah, we're going to have a funding relationship where we'll grant you some dollars to help with implementation, and having maybe some shorter descriptions of those other organizations as well.
Thank you, Shelby.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned a little bit about recognition, and this, you don't really need to worry about this in May, but if you're awarded this, you need to make sure you're recognizing the funders here, and how you do it. And also you can do that in your reports, you can do that on your website, you can do that in a number of ways. So outcomes. So outcomes can do a lot of different things, and can go a long ways to getting support of your proposal. They can help the citizens, or not the citizens, the residents, be more aware of what's happening in this case. They can help you plan. They can help you plan for changes. If you have good outcomes and they're well measured, it really improves your accountability, because outcomes in this kind of work is very hard to do. Even though I'm telling you it over and over, it's very hard to do. But if you do it well, you're going to be winning lots of things over time. Can improve communications because at INRC, people ask me, not at INRC, but my friends ask me, what do I do? It is sometimes hard to describe what I do. If you got this proposal and somebody said, what are you doing? And you talked about, well, we're doing this, this, and this is how we're going to measure it. And next year, we did this, this, and this. Wow, that's an easy way to describe what you did. Promoting collaboration. If your outcomes, if you've been doing well and being successful in your outcomes, and you did this research in the next couple of days, and you found a group that did that, you're going to want to collaborate with them, right? At least I would. Provide some energy. You might be able to get some volunteers. I was working with the volunteer neighborhood group yesterday that hasn't done anything. They're brand new. And they're trying to figure out how to recruit people. And I said, well, first of all, they're trying to figure out how to be an organization. I said, you probably don't need to be an organization first. You need to do a couple of things first. Maybe you need to do a neighborhood cleanup where people see you out there cleaning up and see the benefit. And then when you're talking to volunteers, you say, hey, we're the group that did that cleanup. That's what this is all about. Your outcomes can say, oh, we're the group that did those outcomes. If you do something really creative, people are going to be more supportive of you. Funders, that means funders in other cases are going to be more supportive. And you can gain favorable public recognition. As I indicated before, one of the ideas is hopefully what happens from this project, and I'm using that term loosely, it can be replicated in other places. Okay, so outcomes don't do some things too. So they can't figure out problems. So you need to figure out other ways to make sure that if you're having problems. I'm not really a data nerd and not really a data person, but I do know there's things about some data can show a result that it didn't really show that result. So you just need to be careful about that. And it can't make sure that the outcomes are the right ones. So you kind of have to use your group's knowledge and your group's ideas to figure out what the right outcomes are. And so measurements, I said that was hard, but you can use percentages, you can use numbers, you can use changes in percentage, changes in numbers. That really shows success. That goes back to my comment about having baseline data. If you don't have any baseline data, you can't show any changes because you can only show what you did. And if you got, I'm making this up, but if you got 100 new people got better food because of this, and you didn't have any baseline data, well, how does anyone know that those 100 people already didn't have food in the first place? You know, so think about all of these things. These are just examples of the way you do measurements and the way you should indicate that you're going to report them. I will also say that sometimes measurements have to change. And so I'm not on this committee, and I'm not going to be probably involved after this RFP process. But I will say, if there's some really good reasons for change, the funders, and you work with them, you probably can get some changes made in what you might have to measure. But you have to try what you said first. So don't take it as you just make up some stuff for the RFP. Think really hard through it, but then be careful as you're doing it to make sure that it's meaningful. So you can use your records to get data. Some of this is repetitive, but learning is a repetitive process. Reports that have been done in the past. So I told you to write everything about this so people in the future can use it. Hopefully your organization and other ones have done it in the past. You can do some surveys. SurveyMonkey is like the easiest thing in the world. If I can do it, I guarantee all of you can do it. Writing evaluations, that is one of the things that we can help you with. Interviewing people, interviewing people in the neighborhood, interviewing businesses, interviewing partners, all of that's important. Just observing things. You're probably not going to do tests, and you're probably not going to do incident reports. That's kind of a specific thing, but it's just that there's just different ideas about how you have sources of indicator information. And so this is all things that you would might be outlining in your RFP, but you're not doing it. Just remember that. You're doing it later, but the people evaluating the responses are going to be looking, that's what they're going to be evaluating later.
You will want to, a lot of this is quantitative evaluation. You'll want to consider your qualitative evaluation as well. What is the community saying about the project, the process? What is the community saying about their engagement, where the power dynamics exist, what did they personally benefit? How did they personally benefit? How did their quality of life improve? So be thinking about qualitative evaluation as well.
Budget, I told you, we talked about that. And so this is also on that, but you can use this slide for other things later. In-kind expenses, that's all part of a budget, but that $24.85 per hour, that is the volunteer value in Indiana, right? Well, probably 2020, but I mean, and that's a very high value. And so think about your volunteers as very high value. And I think volunteers don't often think of them as high value. And I'm not sure the rest of us think of them that way too. But that's why I pointed that out. I guess that's my little lecture for today. Okay, do's and don'ts. You see that? Follow the rules. I am a rule follower. Those of you know me, I am an absolute rule follower. Probably maybe too far. But in this case, I don't think you can probably be too far on following the rules. If every RFP that we issued at the city, if the rules weren't followed, that makes it really easy to kick that one out. And when I say easy in the it gets kicked out, it's hard to kick out those kind of things emotionally. It's hard for people to kick out something that didn't follow the rules, even if it's a minor thing. So follow the rules, and the rules will come out next Thursday. Is that the 8th? Is that the right date? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so following the rules means read all of the instructions. I had this both in high school and in college, where somebody give us a test, and it said, read all of the instructions first, and then you would get to the last thing and you didn't have to do the test. Read all of the instructions first. Even those of you that put together stuff and you don't read the instructions, read the instructions. You can't go wrong if you read the instructions. You can go wrong if you don't read the instructions. And then it gets kicked out, like I just said. So I care about that. Think about the date that, let's see, that is the end deadline date, 6 weeks. Don't plan for submitting it the last day of the 6 weeks. People do that. And I know some of you are going to do that. And I know that there's different personalities. I'm not that personality, so I don't really get it. However, I can tell you at the city, we had a deadline often of noon. There would be people that would get there 15 minutes late, and it was because of traffic or something. Their proposal didn't get accepted. That killed us, but we couldn't take it. So think about it being the day before. Okay, this is probably going to be accepted electronically. but computers go down. My computer has gone down. Wi-Fi has gone down. Don't wait till the last day. Do it. Plan the day before. Plan 2 days before. Plan the week before. Plan ahead. Oh yeah, that even says submit 1 week. Plan to submit for 1 week before deadline. Okay, I do realize that that's hard when you only have 6 weeks and you're collaborating with some people that you probably haven't collaborated with. I get that part too. I mentioned this before, but set dates for all of the different things to be done. And so like Shelby mentioned, you might have bios of different people. So if you're going to have a team of people and they're going to give you the bio, say, hey, get the bio to me by Friday, whatever date that is. You know, everybody won't, but you can say, hey, you didn't get that to me the next day. And then you don't have to feel guilty because you told them. So set all those things, and that's all in the planning stages in the next couple of weeks, set all those kinds of things. And that's the same, deal about others contributing, and, make sure that people agree on the deadlines. Like say, so Maury, I can't set everybody's deadlines because, somebody may have some requirements that won't let them meet that deadline. So, but we have to agree on that deadline. So if you can agree on that kind of stuff, you can probably agree on other things later. And this is a handout too, and I'm not going to show it to you, but it basically is the same stuff. So you can either look at the slides later, or you can look at the handout. It's handout 9. And this is also in that handout 9, some things that are typically required with RFPs. So maybe it's an audit, and I don't know what's going to be required here, but your current financial statement, all of these things. I know that INRC typically has to submit all of these things when we respond to a proposal, and we have the director usually does it, so we know who's going to do that part. Like if I'm going to write different things, I might write the narrative. The director then does this part. So figure out who's going to do all of this stuff if it's going to be needed. And the figuring out can be done this next week, who's going to get it, because then next week you'll figure out what you need to submit to go along with it.
And you will need these for the organization that's the lead applicant, because LISC is a community development financial institution. We do want to make sure that we evaluate risk, and yet we also want to make sure if there's something here that maybe you guys don't have, we certainly can give us a call, let us know, we can talk about that. We want to, again, help build organizations' capacity to leverage and to be able to be awarded this volume, but want to also make sure that we are working with a lead organization that's able to manage this volume as well, to be good stewards of the funders' investment. Right. And to make sure we have the impact in the community. Really, that's the ultimate goal.
And so some of you probably have already done this before. If you haven't, or even if you haven't done it this way, get all that stuff together and always keep it in the same electronic file. You can have it in more than one place, but have it in one file. And then every time you do a grant application or a response to an RFP, you already have it and you don't have to go searching, because it takes a while. This is more what you must do, and this is also a handout, and it says the same things in the handout. Follow the guidelines. Said that probably 10 times. Make sure your proposal aligns with the priorities that are outlined in the guidelines. Like I said, if your priorities are way different, it's easy to not get accepted. Submit it before the deadline. Oh, check spelling and grammar. Check spelling and grammar. Okay, I'm of a different generation than many of you, but I can tell you, anytime I read a proposal that didn't have correct grammar, and in particularly spelling, because my God, we have spell check. It takes a little away from the proposal, and I always try to get past that, but it's hard to get past that. And I used to say to staff, if you can't do the little things right, why is someone going to trust us to do the big things right? Okay, so why is this easy? Why is this easy? We have spell check. That's not the only way to do it because spell check, as we know, spells words wrong when we want them. Okay, so you're going to have a team. We've already decided every single group is going to have a team. Well, you can have 2 or 3 people on that team who like to edit stuff. Like me, I'm one of those people. I edit all of our stuff at INRC. I'm one of those people. There are people like that. Have them review it. And so that means that's why you want to have stuff a week ahead so they can start reviewing it. But so plan on that. Who's going to do the editing? And don't let spelling and grammar hinder your support for this. Be clear on your stuff. So Shelby said it's a team of people reviewing these, right? So it's a team of people with varying backgrounds, varying senses of what you may or may not do or what they know. And if you are not clear on things, it's going to be hard for that discussion of that group. Well, what are they really talking about? So try to be really clear. And so that's back to the editing. You also might have somebody review it in that sense. Someone who wasn't the writer, look at it and say, you know, like they were reviewing it. We've done that at INRC too. We used to do that as a city too. Like you're the reviewer. So don't, you know, so pick someone on your team that's not going to be writing. Do that. You know, talk about funding in the past. Funding isn't a big deal in this one. Plan ahead, keep copies. I assume you're all going to keep copies. I think that's pretty simple, but it was written for a reason. Keep copies. Promise only what you can deliver. And Shelby and I talked about that a little bit. Be really honest about what you think you can do. I don't think this group that's going to evaluate these is going to want to pick a proposal of something that was exaggerated because it's not going to be successful. And if you need help from the group, tell them that you need help because that's what part of all this is about. I forgot what you. There's different ways that LISC and Anthem can help, no matter what, in the long run. So think about that. If you quote statistics, list the source. Like that's I quoted Kim. You know, you can use other people's stuff, but tell them that you used other people's stuff. If you don't use it, if you don't quote it, if you don't list it, that's not legal. And then be clear how you'll measure success.
To just give a little bit, to give a little bit of detail about, so for instance, there will be questions about how are you connecting residents to SNAP and WIC, for instance. This is just an example. And if you currently don't have that happening in your neighborhood, say, yeah, this is a goal that we have. We know that there is a need. We currently don't have a partner who is doing that. Just be clear about that this is an area that you have a goal that you want to improve. And then we can work on how, that's part of the plan is you guys could then say that's a goal. And so we can identify a pathway there. You guys can identify, your neighborhood can identify a pathway, but if you don't currently have somebody or an organization working in that space, just say so. And that's really what we're wanting. That's the purpose of this initiative, is to build the neighborhood's capacity to increase healthy food access and equity.
Right. Okay, so a few of you are going to be lucky enough to be finalists and have an interview. So here's some tips on that. And whenever you interview for a job, you're supposed to be prepared with questions. Same deal here, be prepared with some questions and ask some questions that you might want to ask ahead. And here's like some examples. And these are, you don't need to write them down because they're at this RFP 360, which is just an online company. And so these presentation tips are there, but ask, are there any questions that we're supposed to answer in interview? Is there something specific, or is there something that's not understood in the RFP that they want to know about? You need to figure out the stakeholders that might be involved. So if this is about community work, community development, neighbors. So I've seen presentations from groups that didn't have any neighbors involved. You might think about who that might be, or if even that's appropriate to do that. That's a question to ask. You should ask who else is on the short list, who else is getting interviewed, how long it will be, how they're going to be scored, and what will happen after. Like, what's going to happen after we do this interview today? Then you also need to figure out who's going to make the presentation. Shelby talked about a lead agency. Lead agency, just like this, you're going to have a leader of this team, but that leader is probably not going to be the only person that's presenting. You also need to figure out who's going to answer questions at the end of your presentation. Is it going to be the leader? Is it going to be a group? You probably don't want to have people hem-hawing about, oh, Shelby should answer this. And Shelby and I did not figure out that for this presentation today, but we have worked together a lot lately, and it worked out pretty well. I suggest you plan that a little bit more. But if you have that figured out, it's going to show the people in the interview that you're working well together. It is about the community. It's not about your organization. And so it's about your collaboration and the community. It's about the community. Just keep remembering this is about the community. Whoops, sorry about that. Be honest about things that you need. Shelby just kind of mentioned that too. If you don't know the answer to something, say, I really don't know the answer. We need to get back with you or something, and then get back with them. But don't make something up just because you think you need to answer that question. There might be questions that you should know the answer to, and that means you need to think about them before this interview. What might they ask? You might practice. You probably should practice. I have practiced lots of interview kinds of things like this before. Practice, have somebody not on your team, be the reviewer, and ask you questions. You'll be so much better at it. And it's all a lot of work. It is a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of work, but you'll learn from it in the long run, whether you get this proposal or not. Ask what they're going to do next, and they might ask what you're going to do next. What are you going to do if you don't get any funding or if you don't get this proposal? Think about that. And I've said several times, you could still do stuff. You might be able to go to the city and get some funding. I don't know, but there's other options out there. And there might be some deadlines of information that you need to submit, that all interviews need to submit. Just make sure you get all that on time too. It's not just submitting the proposal on time. Okay, so if you are successful, write a thank you note. Even if you aren't, I've written thank you notes for not getting jobs before. But even if you're not, write a thank you note. Always use the funds exactly as you're supposed to. If you can't, talk to them first. Really, this is why we have so much regulation. And I feel like I can say this since I'm was in the government, that we have so much regulation because of the people that do it wrong. If everybody did it right, which is most people, we wouldn't have to have so much regulation. But do it as you're supposed to. Like I said, notify any changes, invite the funder and all the team out to see your project as it's going along. Keep collecting data all along. Don't wait till the end. Don't wait till year 3, because then it's a whole lot of work and it might be too late. Do a reporting. Some of it's going to be informal. Some of it's going to be formal. There may be lots of reports, and submit report on time too. Hey, why is that important? Because you might think, oh, well, I'm already done with this project. well, you might want a project next year or in 5 years. And if you didn't do it on time, that is an impact on how they think, how we thought. Again, not just they. I'm not going to go into all these steps, but make sure you read everything after you get awarded. Stay on top of all the deadlines. If you're not successful, thank anyway. I already said that, but I'm going to repeat that. Sometimes I mentioned that as organizations submitted for community development block grants, there were times when we would get applications that were not well done, but later, maybe it was next year or a couple of years later, they were well done. You probably are going to be going back for funding. So, being a bad loser means you're probably going to be a bad loser for a long time. So be gracious, learn, ask what you didn't do well. Ask, or maybe it's just because you could do better. Really, from this training, maybe Shelby and the whole team's job hopefully is going to be really hard, that they're going to get a lot of really, really good proposals. That is really probably why they wanted to do training. It's probably a little bit gutsy that we're going to have you trained to submit. So think about it that way, so that everybody does a good proposal. But do find out why it didn't work out, because that's how you learn. And then just some writing rules. Repetition means a lot of the repetition of the review and all of that kind of stuff. I've said all of these things, but determine your priorities, do your homework, follow the guidelines, have outcomes that are measurable. But here I wrote the word reachable. You could have some great outcomes that you can't meet, and it might be obvious you're never going to meet those. Do things that are going to be reachable. I know how you're going to be evaluating. Be concise, use plain language. I used to hear, I'm going to say it anyway, I'm not sure if this is still true, but that writing for a 4th grade level is the way to write documents like this, because it's pretty simple and basic. Don't write for a doctorate or something like that. Proofread, that's written 3 times. And even if you don't get this proposal, try again. Very few people win the first time in many things in life. So my last comment before we open for the last question is: a dream you dream alone is only a dream. And a dream you dream together is reality. So you guys, I think there were close to 35 people here. There could be 35 proposals. There could be 35 groups working together to create some really cool reality for Indianapolis. So what other questions do we have? We're actually about 7:45. So I'm pleasantly surprised about how we got through that. And I guess I'll stop to share. What are the biggest, I have the chat open now. What are the biggest errors you have seen in proposals? The biggest error I've seen that is submitted late, and that has happened way more times than you can imagine. That's the biggest error, and I'll just repeat it. That is so sad if it's submitted late, because you've done all that work and it didn't happen. But other is just like little typos. And typos both in, so you don't have to do a budget, but lots of times there's typos in the budget where numbers don't match up. It's just simple things that somebody reviewing would be able to check. which means people like me reviewing or people like this reviewing team can see that stuff pretty obviously. So Shelby, I'll be sharing the recording with you tomorrow. I mean, actually, I might send it to you tonight. Remember, I said I do things right away, and I really do. So so I'll probably do it tonight, and then you can share it with however you want. Because somebody, Joyce asked that. It looks like.
Any other questions?
Thank you. I'll look forward to getting the ability to get the recording because my daughter is part of Elephant Gardens and she couldn't be in on the conference. But since this is a family joint effort, I need to be able to share all of this with her. So thank you for the recording.
You're welcome, Joyce. It'd be great to see you and Elephant Gardens part of a collaborative proposal for your community, for sure. Lots of good stuff happening in your community.
Yes, ma'am, there are. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to keep on till 8. Remember, you have my email. If you ask questions that I don't know the answer to, I'm not going to make up an answer. I'll direct it to the right person. If I know of someone that can help you that's not Shelby or part of their team, I'll direct you there too. As I said, so it's important that everybody's kind of on the same base with questions and answers, and that's why I'll write them out. But the email makes it a lot easier for me. So some of you could conceivably call, but don't do it. Actually, I'm not even in the office, so don't call me, but just send me an email. And yes, we're good. Shelby, thanks for organizing this.
Thank you all for your interest. Thank you for the work that you're currently doing and hopefully the work that you're going to be doing. Do know that this, again, your proposals, if you're not selected as the primary investment neighborhood, as we continue to fundraise, there will be other opportunities. There might be capacity building investments, as well as the city of Indianapolis is capturing what's happening in different parts of the neighborhood. They've had some focus groups and part of the Food Comida, RAL317.com. So if you haven't gone to that webpage, do that, and you can get some input there. But this information can also be shared with them as they help identify strategies to support equitable food access and food security in Indianapolis. And it also helps inform City County Council with some policy recommendations that they will be drafting along the way. So do know that this is one project and an initiative that's working collaboratively with other investments that Anthem has made, as well as other work that's happening in the community, really being led by the Division of Community Nutrition and Policy. So we're thankful to be part of a greater vision for a healthy Indianapolis with improved equitable food access and food security. So the proposal, yes, you want the award, but know that there are other ways that these proposals and your responses can be used to help your communities.
Okay, with that, everybody have a good night and a good weekend, as other people have said in the chat. It was good seeing you all tonight.
Yes. Thank you, Maury.
Thanks, Maury. Thanks,
Yeah.
Shelby.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
Oljan.
Bye-bye.